Good evening, everybody. Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman Von Rudenborg is absent. Deputy Mayor Canestrino?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sims?
Here.
Councilman Battaglia?
Here.
Mayor LaBrosse?
Here.
This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 4-6 et sec, notice having been published according to law, with a copy on file in the clerk's office and a copy posted on the bulletin board in City Hall.
Thank you. Would everybody please rise for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, with that, I will turn it right over to the city manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and invited guests. This is the COW meeting of the whole agenda for May 7, 2019. First on the list is a Teterboro Airport flight path update. Deputy Mayor, would you please?
Sure, thanks. Good evening, everyone. As I think most of you know, I represent Hackensack at the Teterboro Aircraft Noise Abatement Committee meetings that are held quarterly. And at these meetings, up until this point, we had been tracking the new alternate flight path completion date as August of 2019. Now, let me take you back a little to January, which was the meeting prior. I just had the quarterly meeting April 26th, I believe it was, so like a week or so ago. So in January, when we had our meeting, we did not have an FAA representative at that meeting, and they attributed that to the government shutdown, that they couldn't attend. But we were told that everything was still on target for August of 2019. So at this meeting in April, there was an FAA representative there, and he came and he told us that the August 2019 date is no longer the target date for the rollout of the alternate flight path, that date has now been changed to March 26th, 2020. Amazing that he could give the exact date, but that was the date that he said they are now marching along to. So when I asked the question as to what happened, he blamed this again on the shutdown. Now, his story is that in January, they had a consultant all lined up to perform the next phase of the environmental testing, because that's where they are with this. And that when the shutdown took place, they didn't sign his contract at that point, and he basically went and took another job. So my question is, well, what happened in the past number of months? From it is now the end of April. What happened in January, February, March, April? Nothing. And that was his comment, that they still don't have a consultant, although they feel that they are very close to signing with one. So I asked him that we really don't want to wait until July to hear about this. As soon as you have closure and you have a consultant, could you please reach out to the members so that we know that work will appropriately begin? I was concerned about it for a number of reasons. One, I think it's just become easy in general to just blame things on the shutdown or blame things on the president. And regardless of what you think of the president, I think you have to take ownership for your roles and responsibilities in this. So that disturbed me about the whole conversation. But the fact that nothing had been done in 4 months was really disturbing to me. So I reached out to Congressman Gottheimer's office, because he has been supportive of us in the past, and he helped us, I guess it was a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, if folks remember, when we had the FAA come here and have our joint meeting, etc. So I spoke in detail with his aide, and she told me that she would reach out to their FAA representative and see if she could get some answers to my questions. Basically, what was the holdup for the 4 months? So when she did get back to me, she said that, they said pretty much the same thing, that they were blaming it on the shutdown and that upset everything. And when she continued to ask about, the 4 month period, basically what they said to her is other areas were a higher priority and had safety concerns. Now that really disturbed me. I think that we definitely have safety concerns. We have noise concerns, but we definitely have safety concerns. and for us to become a lower priority was very disturbing to me. So I went back and I looked at a lot of my notes and I said, what were we doing to get attention back then? What are we doing now? What could we do differently to make this a priority? Because we know it is. And I've spoken to them. I said, at this point, with the volume of air traffic that we're seeing come through the city, it's no longer if there's going to be an accident, it's really when. And we have to be proactive. And I had a conversation with the airport just the other day, and I said to them, you know, we don't want to have something happen and then get into this, oh, if only we would have, could have, should have. That's not where we want to be. And as residents of this city, where we are seeing the most noise, the most air traffic, and flying the closest to the most densely populated street in all of Bergen County, I think we have a right to be at that table and to have a good and very high priority. I hate to say the squeaky wheel gets the oil or gets the grease, but that's what happens, right? Noise complaints. I know everyone hates to do it, but I'll show you the chart. This is for the quarter of the other towns. Hackensack is here, and a whole quarter, we only had 12 noise complaints filed. So you can almost see what they're thinking. They're saying, wow, why should we spend all this money over there in Hackensack? We only had 12 complaints in 3 months. And even though it isn't only about noise, they have to report this information. So this is a way for us to have a voice. I'm not one that actually I had never called one in myself, because I live on the Maywood border and I'm in the lower kind of the valley of it, but it does get quite noisy especially in my backyard. So I started this past week, and I'm going to hold the number up so you can see it, not just say it. It's 201-288-8828. Right? The first time you call, they will ask you for your name and address information. But you only have to give that the first time. So don't feel like, oh goodness, every time I have to go through this. Once you give your name and address information, then you just call and give your last name and they will record it. I've recorded a number of them. Basically, the primary things they want to know, is it too low, too loud, too low and too loud, or is it too frequent? So if you just think about those things, low and loud and often or frequent, that's all you have to say. And get our numbers so that we're showing, at least this way statistically, that we're still upset in Hackensack. And I kind of said this to them. I said, we were all playing nice together, working together. Yes, we were upset a couple of years ago. We came up with a solution. We were happy. We were working towards it. We felt like we were partners. And I kind of feel like you double-crossed us, because you felt, all right, they're being quiet in Hackensack, so they don't have to be a priority. Part of the reason that I asked some folks to come, and I know it was late notice, and I'm hoping maybe the end of the month we'll do this again, is I'm going to tell you about the few things that I've started to do, but I need help. Okay, so I want to hear from some of you also if you have ideas of how we can raise awareness, because we know that they don't like bad publicity. And if we can raise public awareness that we really have a problem in Hackensack with this, and there is a solution. We know the solution. The solution is defined. It's a simple solution. It's going to fly over Route 17. It's a lower lying area. Residents don't live on Route 17. We have a solution. We just have to finish the testing, make it a priority, and get it done. Safety is the most important thing. We have to focus on safety. We've been focusing on noise. They do collect a lot of data on noise, and it's helpful to continue to do that. But I want you to understand some things that I've been just digging deeper, a little bit deeper in this noise, because some of the numbers, and you know that I like to look at numbers, some of the numbers just didn't make 100% sense to me. Apparently there's a number out there that is used nationwide as far as noise, and that's the number they report. And the number they report, there's a threshold at 65 decibels. So they manage this thing, and the data says, okay, so no one should be living at a 65 decibel or above environment. Okay, now, can't see the chart, but we have, there's 1, 2, 3, there's 6 monitors in the area. 2 of them happen to be in Hackensack. All right, the one at the hospital is up here, right? And that's the highest number by far of everyone. Now, last year we were at 65.1, so we were at that point that you should not be living comfortably at that noise level. This year they're claiming so far we're at 59. I don't know if I believe it based on just sitting out on my deck for a couple of days, but that's what they're claiming. So I said to myself, it just doesn't sound right. Tell me how this 65 is calculated, because it doesn't sound right to me looking at decibel calculations, etc. What they do is, this is the average throughout the entire day. So they average in all the zeros. All right, so it's not like saying only the aircraft noise is at 65. This is saying this is the average noise in the 24-hour period. So I said, well, I'm just curious. I want to know for myself what the noise looks like when there's aircraft. Okay, and last year for 2018, there were 37,439 events. So they call it an event. So that's when it's registering this noise level. Okay, of those 35,418, I know you can't see this, but you can get an idea that it really comes into a bell curve. Can you see that? So the majority of it is clustered in the middle. I was kind of almost hoping that it wasn't going to look like this, that there was going to be outliers or anomalies that were going to say, oh, well, it's not all the time that it's that noisy, but that's not true. You see the gist of where those lines are, and I'll show you that right in the middle. It's a true bell curve. So the outliers are when it's a little quieter, and very few when it's a little noisier. So this one might be easier to see. Of the 37,439, 35,418 of them register between 74 and 84 decibels. You see that blue line? Okay, so 35,000 of the 37,000 are registering 74 to 84 decibels. All right, just think about that number. 35,418 a year. That's 97 a day. All right? If that were equally distributed, and we know it's not because it's later in the evening hours, or the nighttime hours, thank God, that would be 4 an hour at 74 to 84 decibels. So we are definitely seeing the noise that we think we hear. We're not crazy when we hear it. We are seeing that noise here. So please log it. All right, so I scratched my head, and I'm going to let you know the couple of things I thought of, and then I'm going to ask you guys if you have any ideas. I mean, there's a few things we can do. We could definitely do the noise complaints. I've asked the airport for a list of their corporate accounts, the folks that own corporate jets that use these for business purposes, and this should be public information. It's a government agency. And I would think that we should be able to write a letter to them just explaining our concerns for safety and see if they can give us some support to get this alternate flight path in place. The airport's response was, oh, we'll get back to you with that information. I said, well, if I have to fill out an Oprah request or something like that, just let me know. I'll be happy to do. Oh, no, we'll get you that information. We're going to get back to you. So this just happened, so we'll wait and we'll see. But they said to me, well, you know, these corporate accounts, they're very well aware of the noise levels and the problems in the area. I said, yes, but are they aware of the safety concerns? Because I think that is the more critical part to this. So I think that could be an initiative that we could do. I reached out to the city. The city sent a letter to confirm with Congressman Gottheimer what our concerns were and ask for his support in this initiative. Everyone could do that. Right? You can write to your local government agencies and contact folks and say, hey, we need some help here. Can you come forward? Can you do that? I guess we could get some signs and we could take turns, and on a Sunday afternoon when it's the worst, you know, we could go down to the airport and we could protest that we need an alternate flight path. You know, I think there's a number of things we could do to raise awareness outside of Hackensack as well as to the safety concerns we have and why we need this flight path now, why this work has to start sooner than later. Okay, so if we can, Ted, can we open it?
Yeah, there was one question. Previous meeting, it's not on this pad because long ago, there was a comment that one town had unbelievable reported numbers, and there was an app or something you could put on your phone. We need to get that.
Yeah,
Get that dispersed, because that thing just keeps registering these complaints.
Yeah, apparently there's an app you can purchase that you just press a button on your phone and it automatically registers it. I forget the name of it. I did have it. Someone in Maywood actually purchased it, and Maywood's numbers went sky high because Maywood's seeing a lot of what we're seeing too. You know, they're not as high, you know, they're not seeing what we're seeing on Prospect Ave. But I'm telling you, I'm on the Maywood border, John, you're across the street, but they fly right over my house. I don't know if they do over you. If I am sitting on my deck and my phone rings, I cannot speak on the phone without going in the house and shutting the door. I can't possibly hear it, and I have pretty good hearing. And I'm in the low-lying area. I'm not up on or close to the elevations of Prospect, so I can only imagine.
Could you see if you could find that information?
I will. And then let's not forget, I almost forgot, let's not forget the school issue. I mean, we have Hiller's School right in that flight path, also at an elevation. And Hiller's School, you know, they are, teachers there cannot keep windows open, I believe, because of the sound. The kids can't hear them. And, you know, that school isn't air conditioned, so in the warm weather, I'm sure it's more than an inconvenience. I'm sure the children are, it's really not the right way to be conducting classes with that type of noise. So, Ted, if we could, I was going to ask before, could we open it to the public? And if anyone, I'm really looking for suggestions. Maybe we want to form a committee. Maybe somebody wants to head it up. I mean, I think Hackensack is fighter. We're fighters, yes? You know I'm a fighter. So we're fighters, and I think if we band together and make our point clearly and professionally, I think we're going to get a good response.
Okay, need a motion to open to the public, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed? Anybody who'd like to speak, please come to the podium. Give your name and address to the clerk, please, or at least your name, and you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Carl Hagensack. I live in the executive house that's on Beach Street, so directly under the flight path by the hospital. 2 comments. One is that the hotline, when you call it, it almost seems purposely obstructionist. They give you a very long voice menu of which the choice that you need is like 2 levels down. When you finally get there, they give you a long spiel again before your choices come there, which sometimes are, you know, they tell you what the hours are, and if you think that you're within the hours, you want to talk to an agent, but the agent isn't there because for whatever reason, then you hang up and you have to call again. When you finally do get through to an agent, they oftentimes argue with you. Oh, that wasn't very loud. Oh, that was because this was scheduled or something like that. I don't understand why they're so obstructionist. It almost seems like they have an agenda that they don't want to take complaints, and that's who's responsible for collecting the complaints? Is it an independent agency, or is it another arm of themselves? And is there a conflict of interest there? It really bothers me. Even when you do get through to the recording, the amount of information that they ask seems reasonable, but when you're actually sitting there, so the plane has flown over, and I've timed it, and it takes like 5 minutes before you can actually get to the heart of the matter of, you know, there was a really loud plane just now. Well, 5 minutes ago, 3 others have flown over since the time that I've been on the phone trying to register this complaint. It just, you know, strikes me as there's something wrong about the system the way that it is. My second comment is, are we looking into the fact that they keep, you know, nobody's addressing the fact that Teterboro seems to want to keep growing and growing. It doesn't benefit us. We're directly under the flight. I don't know who it benefits. I guess the corporations who fly these jets. Why do we need more planes coming in? And I have a practical suggestion that even though, you know, oh, well, you know, they want to make money, it's all business and all this, why don't they raise the rates of how much it costs to land at Teterboro so that the corporations, if they really must fly an airplane in at Sunday night, they can pay, I don't know, double, 10 times as much if it's really worth it. And so Teterboro would be making the same amount of money, but fewer planes would fly. It's not like there's you know, teeming masses struggling to land at Teterboro. It's executives flying mostly empty jets probably. Mm-hmm. So you know, why doesn't Teterboro raise the rates? They'll still make out. We'll have fewer planes. Seems win-win to me. And I don't know if this is an opening at another front addressing a completely different issue, but it seems like something that we should be looking into. Thank you very much.
I'll talk just quick. when you call, as long as you call before 5 o'clock, you don't have to wait for those messages if you know what you're doing. It's 4 and 1, okay, because I have it down pat now. So in other words, as soon as you hear a voice say, pick your choice, press 4,
Yeah.
it'll go right to the next one, press 1, and you'll go to the live agent. So that has helped me tremendously.
Maybe we should put that on the poster.
Yes,
4
maybe I
and
should-
1, because-
4 and 1.
Because I don't even remember, I've called
Yeah.
a couple times and I don't, what was the number again? I'm not sure that they don't change them every now and then, because 4 is Teterboro.
4 is
all the way down
Teterboro.
the thing. I don't know that it was always 4. It might have been a different number before.
Right now it's 4,
Yeah.
and right now it's 1.
Listen carefully because the options have changed.
I agree that could happen. So, yeah, and you can log them via email, just so you know. You can send an email.
Yeah, but
To me now, it's faster, now that I've got the 4-1 and they have my
Right.
name, like, I just, as soon as they pick up the phone, they say, oh God, they must say, here she is again, because I've been
Yeah.
calling a
Well,
lot.
that-
I just say Canestrino, it's
you
too
get
low
people
and it's
to-
too loud.
I understand for their data purposes, but you should be able to log it anonymously. Why do they want all this information? That's also going to put people off. You have to give up your name, your address, your phone number, and then when they call you back, it's kind of creepy. Oh, it's you again. Yeah.
Well, because you know what, they not only track the number of complaints on that sheet I showed, but they track the number of callers with those complaints. So you can see, like, 2 callers could have 100 complaints.
Right.
So,
Well, and that sort of defeats the purpose. I mean,
yes, they do, they also,
that
they
shames
do
you.
track.
Okay, I'm calling too much. Well, no, I'm not. But
They do track that.
Yeah.
As far as, we have discussed a lot at the committee about limiting the number of flights, because they have grown through the years. I mean, in 2015, there was like 36,000, and now they're at 38,000. And they claim because they're a government agency, they have to be open to everyone.
they can be open. They can just charge more. It's in
They
their
could
interest.
charge more, but they can't limit.
Yeah, no,
amount.
they don't have to limit. Who's in
Let
charge
it be
of
self-limiting.
what it costs to land there? I think it should be 10 times as much because, hey, we're at an exclusive location. They should be charging what it's worth.
Absolutely. And I wrote that one down, so that should certainly help us. Thank you,
you.
sir.
Next, please.
Frank Albolino, Heat Place. They also fly right over my house. I have a different number for them that I got maybe 2 years. I'm sorry. I have a different number. Maybe I got it 2 years ago. 800-225-1071.
Is
It's
it
an
faster?
automated number. Yeah, you just, like you said, press the buttons. About 15 years ago, we had a monitor on top of Hill School. Maybe you can contact the Board of Ed and see if they'll do that again. My suggestion is, at the same time, we had a problem. Steve Rothman was our congressman. And I don't know how he did it, but he stopped them from having daily commuter flights out of Teterboro, which was a big win for us. And he also had a verbal agreement, no flights between 12 p.m., 6 a.m. And I dropped that information, because we were talking about it, Deputy Mayor. And I dropped that information off at the city manager's office maybe a year and a half ago. I hope it got to you. I gave it to a young, tall police officer.
I have it still, so I can go
Okay.
through and look for it.
I think the best thing to do is have a face-to-face with our congressman. Don't deal with his subordinates, go face-to-face. We're the county seat of Bergen County. We're a Democratic town. I think sit down with the man, look across him. I know he has these cup of joes at the diners, actually a cup with Josh at the diners, but I think you got to set up a meeting, because I met with one of his representatives in his building when he first got elected. It was a long time ago. I had to wait for the guy because I guess he wasn't here during the hours he was supposed to be here, but I recommend a face-to-face meeting with him. And if that doesn't work, we always got Senator Booker and Senator Menendez. And you got to have clout with these people, and the federal government has clout. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
suggestions. I'll try and get that set up.
And I'll start calling again.
Thank
The reason
you.
why I didn't call, I thought it was settled, like
I-
everyone else.
And shame on them, because I think that's what, we all felt that way, that we were working cooperatively together and we were marching along to August 2019. So the fact that nothing's happened in these past few months and we just found out about it, shame on them a little bit.
I agree with you. Thank you.
Next, please.
I'm Martin Kramer. I'm from Hackensack Smart Schools, and our mission is to try and help the students in Hackensack. And this is an issue which really affects both their physical safety and their noise safety. I'll talk about the Hiller School in a second, but I had about a half hour today. I did some quick research, not thorough, certainly not extensive, but I found a few things that might be interesting. Deputy Mayor, you mentioned about the 65 decibel level that the FAA comes up with. What they say in the FAA rules is that at or above 65 decibels, it's incompatible with residential communities. So they're not saying that 65 is a good number, it's a bad number. And you should understand the way decibels work. I didn't know it until today. It's something like the Richter scale for earthquakes. To go from 60 to 70 is not just up 10 points, it's a doubling. And if you go from 60 to 80, it's a quadrupling. So if they say that the decibel level is 80, that's 4 times more than it should be. And that's something that we should keep in mind. I'm sure that
74 to 84, that's average. That's what we're average hearing. 74 to
yes.
84.
And the average, of course, includes nighttime where they're not permitted to fly or land except for emergencies. So that they spread it out. It's a lot more. It's got to be a lot more. And let's talk about the Hiller School for a second as far as noise. As my understanding is, you mentioned that you have to close the windows there for classes to continue. Hiller School is not air conditioned, so in the summer it's going to be rough. But I also understand that the noise was so bad several years ago at Hiller School that they reinforced the foundation with soundproofing. And even that didn't help too much. So you have to keep the windows closed, and you have to shout if you're a teacher. Hiller School has a real problem. It's right at right on the flight path right now. Most of the rest of Hackensack is either north or south of the flight path, but Hiller's is right on it. And the proposal to move it to Route 17 was a good one. I understand, and I don't know if this is true, that one of the reasons that was not done is that the pilots don't like it. And I don't know why they get to make the rule.
Well, actually, I believe the pilots, from some of the meetings I've been at that they were there, they really do want to accommodate because they don't like bad press either, and they want people to be happy so they can continue their journey. The problem with the original one over Route 17 was that it was a visual only, so there was no instrumentation to guide them. This new one will have GPS navigation, so that makes their life a lot easier, and they're a lot happier with that. So once this new one is implemented, I think we're going to see a lot more volume going over Route 17. So that was the reason that the first one really didn't work. So it wasn't that they didn't want to do it; it was.
Remember that airport was built in I think in the 40s to take single-engine planes, no jets, just single-engine planes, and it just grew like crazy. And there's been several movements to move everything to Newark, which has much longer runways, where you can come in over the water in some cases, and you don't have to go over populated areas. But let's talk a bit about safety. I know about the 2009 accident where a plane crashed and the pilot and the co-pilot were killed.
The call set, that's 2009. No, that's the recent
17.
one. 2017.
2017.
2017.
Well,
That was 2 years ago.
If we're talking about the same one, that's the one where they found out several days later that the co-pilot was flying, not
Yes,
the
that's the
pilot,
same
and the
one.
co-pilot was not authorized to fly at all. He did not have nearly enough flying hours to be flying. And just before the crash, seconds before the crash, he finally said to the pilot, and they have it on tape, "You take over." And the pilot took over, and then they crashed, and they were both killed. But there have been, over the last 15 to 20 years, many accidents, not just a few, and many near misses, which they don't tell you about.
Absolutely. I
it's
think your
really
time is up.
difficult.
I think your time
Mr.
is up.
Kramer, we're way
Kramer.
past
He's
the,
trying to- but
we're towards
yes,
5 minutes.
We appreciate,
Thank you.
and Absolutely, and if that caused, just hold 1 second, Rick, if that caused that accident in 2017, if they had been coming from the north instead of the south, we would have been right on target, and there would have been hundreds, if not 1,000 lives that would have been lost there. And, you know, many of the issues, you know, the whole issue with Captain Sully, who landed, you know, safely in the Hudson River, he was being diverted to Teterboro. He knew enough that he wasn't going to make it. But, you know, their plans were that he should be going to Teterboro. So, you know, we have to just say this is a densely populated area. The jets that are coming in are larger and larger. Not only did we not have them 30, 40 years ago when I bought my house, we didn't have this anywhere near this type of traffic, but the size alone of them are just so much larger. And wiggling through the apartments, you know, when we see them, you know, and have some pictures of them, it's, you know, a little frightening when you see how close they're coming to some of those. But that is, I forgot that one, that at that point. That is another thing we can do, is take pictures, send them to the city manager. Is, you know, you folks that are living on Prospect and folks that live in the second ward, because it's dangerously close to the second ward as well. And, you know, if you see something low or close to a building, you have your phones today, send the pictures to us, because that's very other important evidence for us to collect, how close they're really getting.
May I say just one more thing?
Just make it quick, please. We have a
Quickly.
line of people and a lot
I
of work
think
to
the
do.
time for protesting and calling is past. I would suggest we look into litigation. I'm looking at Mr. Kleinman, and I know it's a chore, and it's a major job, and that's not something you do by yourself. You should get a coalition.
I would ask that you take that one
off.
offline with our
Yes.
city attorney. Any suggestions you may have?
I'm happy to have the discussion. I mean, obviously, you know, when they say you can't fight City Hall, well, fighting the federal government's a lot tougher than fighting City Hall.
But that's the only way, I think.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Richard Solkin, Prospect Avenue, 19th floor, Hackensack, with a northern view. I can sit on my
Get us good
balcony.
pictures then.
Yeah. I can
Please,
sit-
Rick, take some
I will,
shots, send them in.
I will. I can sit there like a late Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, and I can see 3 of them coming in. And I time them about a minute and a half up to the park.
You're right,
So
90
4 hours.
seconds.
Man, I wish it was only 4. And I gotta tell you, I love airplanes.
Me
It doesn't
too.
offend me. I do. I don't fly. I wish I did. But we also recently got a new sliding door to the terrace, which when you open it, you really hear it a lot more than I did before. Anyway, you were looking for suggestions. I'm not sure I come up with anything great. I'm sure you remember, years ago, the city printed postcards to be sent in to, I guess, the FAA for the residents. They're handed out at the July 4th,
Ted, maybe
and thousands of them.
that's a good idea.
It's something. Secondly, if you're on the point of this, Mrs. Castrione, over the years, now I'm going back many years, I couldn't tell you what year, I do remember that Jack Ziza was the mayor. The promise then was it was going to be a scattered flight. It would fan out. In other words, the plane wouldn't be like a sidewalk. It would come in at 90, then it would come in at 80, and that never happened. But they said that was going to happen.
That happened way north of us. But by the time it gets to us, for them to line up,
You're on that beam.
you have to be on that beam.
And the fact that they haven't put in the instrumentation is awful. I mean, that would have solved it, or would have greatly aided it. Stay active, stay talking. I mean,
Today with
I'll start taking some
GPS
pictures.
navigation, you know, they have waypoints, they absolutely can fly these planes in. So, and they know this.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter
It sounds like
of,
they sabotaged it deliberately, frankly. I mean, if they had this, they knew it would have worked. They said, well, no. And we know the pilots are going to go. And if I was a pilot, I wouldn't trust. I would stick with the
Absolutely.
computers. And they should-
why not have it? But in no way do I want to diminish the fact that before this is implemented, it has to go through the proper protocols and be safe. I mean, you're not going to put anything out there that isn't 100% safe. So there's no way we're asking anybody to shortcut anything. Just let's do it. Let's get the testing done and move forward.
Just what I should have said, if I'm repeating myself, it's getting old. I think if you would verse yourself on what was put on the table over the years, and you could present that to a congressman or an official, say, look, we were promised this, didn't happen, promised this, didn't happen.
They tell me 10 years that folks have been fighting for this, for over 10 years.
But the prior thing, scattered, never came.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kathleen Salva, Hackensack. Yeah, promises, promises, promises. And I've been around a long time, like Mr. Sorkin. And when they first started the airport, it used to be Arthur Godfrey back in the day when the little toy plane used to come in. They promised us 3 schools would be air conditioned. It was Jackson, St. Francis, which is now the ECDC, and Hillers. And Hillers was on the list, and I remember that very specifically. They did the 2, and it's ironic because Jackson is sort of like, it's not as high. Hillers is the highest, and it's probably the most dangerous. And when we asked what happened, they said, well, we don't have the money now. When we have the money, we will do it. And then nobody pursued it. And I kept saying to people, we were promised that. That was in the original plans when they were going to do it. And they never did it. And since our schools really should all be air conditioned, and they're not, by getting one free from the FAA would be a plus. So Regina and I had gone to, a couple of years ago, they had a big thing with the airport at the administration building, and I quoted somebody. They go, oh, well, the decibels have changed, and now it's not as high. I said, well, they're the most at Hillers, more than Jackson and more at St. Francis. And they said, well, we had changed that. And I talked to somebody, and then we came back and we told you, and you said, well, you can't fight. We'll never win because you can't fight the airport. And like we see, we're having a hard time doing it. But when you do your list, that has to be, and they'll have the original papers where that was stated, and it was the 3 schools. So.
I did bring this up with them, Kathy, and they went back through their study. Now, they don't have to be telling me the truth either, so I can say that with a grain of salt. But they said that the Hillers numbers were slightly under what qualified for it. They told me they were trying to get them into this to do, but they were slightly under. So I brought up to them the fact that we've now hit the 65, and now the news story is, well, you only get to approach them in these 5-year windows, and so we're like 2 years into this study. So I said, so we became 65 in 2018 and we can't qualify now? And they said, no, that's not the way it works. The government only allows you these. So I did give contact information, so when we have our joint Board of Ed meetings, I did give that information to the Board of Ed, and I said, I think it might be even better if you call them too. You talk to these people. Here's who you need to talk to. And they said they were going to follow up on it as well. Because then they can certainly argue for the school too. But I agree with you, Kathy.
The whole 3 did qualify, Kathy, at one point. They just said they didn't have enough of money. I wish I can go back and see the minutes or the notes. They didn't have the money then. As soon as they got the money, they would come back and do it. But ironically, Hillers is the most noisy.
Absolutely.
And the other 2 are like, all right, they're bad, but not as bad as Hillers. So the other 2 got it, and Hillers didn't. So there's something wrong here. Thank you.
Next, please.
Hello, my name is Edgar Sanchez, and I just have one question, Ms. Deputy Mayor. I know you mentioned that if we need to go around the airport with signs and do protests about it, my question would be when in specific this will be available? Not just available, but in other words, when will that day come that we could go and actually make it happen?
Well, that's kind of why I'm having this discussion tonight with everybody, and I want to do it again at the end of our next meeting, so maybe we can get more folks, is I'm just throwing out ideas. Like I've been upset about this since I had the meeting. So, you lay awake at night and you think, what else could we possibly do? So I'm just saying, I think if we could, what I'd really hope to hear eventually is that we could form a committee here that some folks would take ownership for, and I'll help, I'll be out as much as I can. And that organization will run this stuff. Like, are we going to write more letters? Are we going to get ads in the paper? Are we going to use postcards, as someone said? Are we going to walk on Sundays when it's horrible? We know that I time them on my backyard too, and it's every 90 seconds they're going by. Should we go at the airport and let the corporate folks that are walking off these planes see people protesting? Would that help? What is it that we can do to raise awareness of the real predicament we're in? And all we want is to just get this study done and move forward. We have a flight path. We know what we want to do. Let's just get us back to a high priority and get it done. That's all we want. So I think we've got to just dig our heels in and say we're not going to tolerate being put off again.
And I completely agree with that, in the sense of, if we start moving, and if we know that it has been 10 years of fighting and not being able to see any results, as soon as they see movement, the media see movement, and the airport sees the movement of people coming out, they're gonna do something about it. But my only question was that to be able to be part of it and work with the city as well.
Well, we would love to do that. We're gonna collect some names, hopefully at the next meeting, come back and see us, and maybe we can organize a little better and get it done. Thank you for your comment.
Thanks to you guys.
Okay, need a
Anybody
motion to close to the public?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed?
any comments from
Um,
the council folks or the mayor?
you guys have anything? I do, real quick. Just on the record, part of Hillers does have air conditioning. There are certain parts of the school that do have it, but there's also quite a few rooms that don't. And it is correct that on a very hot day when it's 85, 90 degrees in the room, you know, you can't even open a window because it's impossible to teach, because every minute or two a plane is flying over. It's very loud over there. I think one of the, I'm in agreement with a lot of the things. I probably would even be a little tougher. I mean, you know, I would really force the issues on who's flying these corporate jets, what companies they are, what type of businesses they do. Can those businesses be affected? I mean, you know, there's strength in numbers. There's other towns involved that fly, have the low-plane flyings coming over them that also deal with this noise. They're also at the meetings. I mean, you know, you gather those names and start making the phone calls, we start getting those people together and team up, that would help tremendously. I like the idea of going down to the airport and making some noise of our own. So I think we should move forward with, you know, all
Let's
these
hope we get
ideas.
some, maybe some participants.
I like Mr. Solkin's postcard idea. Also, let's get the other number out that Mr. Albolino left, and I will personally call Mr. or Congressman Gottheimer myself.
You can set up a meeting for you
Yep.
and I, John. I think
All right.
we could-
Maybe we can get people to sign a petition, you know, you got 9,000 people in the high rises, so
Yeah?
we can get,
Absolutely.
go around and get some signatures and make a petition to go and complain,
It's, I know,
because
it's Sunday. Sunday's the worst for me. I mean,
It is.
I can't even sit outside on my, or if I'm inside and have the windows open, I'm watching television, I have to close the windows, put the air conditioning on so I can hear the television. It's ridiculous. So it's brutal.
Although Monday, this past Monday was horrible. I must have called 3 or 4 times. I mean, they were for hours, from like 11 in the morning till like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They were
And the best part
every
is,
2-3 minutes.
as the one gentleman brought up, most of these planes have 2 pilots and maybe 2 or 3 passengers on them. You know, and it's just, yeah, a lot of pain for a gain of a few people. It really should be not allowed to. There should be a minimum amount of people on those flights in order to do it. And, you know, flying these 30, 40 passenger jets with 3 or 4 people on them is ridiculous. It shouldn't be allowed. It's a
Even what
waste
it's
of
doing
fuel.
to the environment. I mean,
Yeah, it's a waste of fuel, too.
but
and noise pollution.
I show up to maybe a couple of meetings, 3 meetings, I think. And I told him right to his face, to Mr. Dresser, that he was playing games. And they fool us, and they're not gonna do anything. And the FAA and the people from there, they are in cahoot, and
No.
they continue doing the business. You got planes that maybe over 100,000 pounds now going to Teterboro.
Time for the
It's not
city
like
to
a-
mobilize.
10 or 15 passengers. I bet you they got more than 60 passengers now.
All right, that's it.
Anything,
Anybody
Dave?
else? Dave? Nothing? Okay. Back in business.
Next on the agenda is the Hackensack Riverwalk final decision for the walkway and the exterior finishing. At a previous council meeting, there was a brief overview of this. I think the issue really is, are we going to approve and maintain the streetscape standards for the Riverwalk? And as you were passed out in your binders, we have choices, which include concrete, pavers, and asphalt. Those basically, and also what are we gonna adopt for standards for benches, single trash receptacles, and double trash receptacles. We have some other issues on the calendar tonight, but we need to make some decisions soon. One of the council women are not here tonight. I would just urge the council to supply the city manager's office with what you like or dislike so we could narrow this field down and come up with some standards so Fran, Albert, and the rest of us could continue to move forward, because without these standards in place, it's really hard for us to comment, and when we're doing these redevelopment discussions, we don't know what the material is, so we don't know what the costs are, we don't know what the standards are, which is
Well, a lot of us, I think, had pretty much, I discussed it with Kathy, and we were talking about the concrete. I didn't speak to Leo and Dave about it, but concrete, I think, is, lasts the longest. It's a mid-range price compared to the pavers versus the paving. I don't know if everybody's in agreement with that, but I would suggest using the same streetscape standards for the benches and garbage receptacles. Should something change on Main Street, those items, if they needed to be moved, or they could be put into service on the walkway.
I agree, why not make it consistent?
We do the same with the lights too.
When we agonized over making those decisions, so why not do the same as far as those things go? But I think the concrete, as far as maintenance goes especially, we've seen what happened with pavers when they did some of the brickwork on Main Street. Before you know it, it was all picking up, and, I think that the concrete also. What about Dave, Leo, do you?
I prefer asphalt.
You like the
because
asphalt?
It's easy to maintain, and that one, contract and spend, in the special weather that we got around here. I would say the asphalt will be more.
Well, the asphalt's cheaper, but, it
Concrete,
wears out quickly.
You start develop all this crack because the weather condition, the soil,
And they all get affected by the soil.
Yeah, but the asphalt is cheaper and more easy to repair.
The only thing that I remind the mayor and council is that whatever is selected, once it's installed, and maybe it's done by a developer, we're then on the hook for the maintenance of it. So you have to look at this for long term, because the cost of that is going to be financially the responsibility of the city and the taxpayer.
Well, see if we can get some numbers on real quick, on the life expectancy of concrete versus
I think
asphalt.
that was one, I don't know what was the numbers, but I think the concrete was in here, wasn't that one of them?
It's one.
Yeah, it's required, asphalt requires more maintenance, but it's easier to perform.
Right. That's the trade-off. You have to do it more
Easy to
often.
repair with sealant.
Right. So,
What do you think, Tim?
I haven't had time, to be honest with you, to really look at this, but I'll give it a shot, and hopefully by the next council meeting, we'll make an affirmative decision. We can hope for that.
Okay.
Okay. Next is the PD traffic detail increase and the fees. Steve, you want to weigh in briefly on this?
Well, our ordinance governing off-duty police employment doesn't actually specify the rates that are to be paid when businesses, companies retain our police to perform appropriate security details, traffic, supermarket, whatever it might be. So this ordinance will establish a baseline rate of $80 per hour per officer. You can hire an officer for 5 minutes if you want, but the minimum is that you have to pay for 4 hours. Also establishes an administrative fee of $20 per hour per officer. So this way it's actually enshrined as opposed to it being handled through less formal manner. So, pretty simple ordinance requested by the police department. We had a bit of a review over the exact language over the last couple of weeks, but I think everyone's in agreement that we're good to go with that now.
What was if I may ask, what was the administrative fee beforehand, before this?
I would refer to the city manager.
I believe it was $10.
10?
But it was for the entire thing. What people don't understand is those cars that sit out there and idle all day,
Yeah.
where it's run the gas, the alternator.
The wear and tear on the
It's
car.
really a vehicle fee, so if they
It
had.
includes the vehicle. It's called an administrative/vehicle fee, yes.
So if they, even if it was one person, no, they wouldn't need more cars than people.
No.
Okay, so it's really a per person cost, but it's for the use of the vehicle.
Okay. No other questions. We'll move on, because our agenda's starting to grow, and I see some backlash that we're gonna have to deal with. The upcoming food truck event, with the city of Hackensack joining forces with the Hackensack Main Street Business Alliance. There was some discussion about this. Main Street Alliance is eager to get the community and the residents and our visiting guests to understand and see the city as it expands and develops. So there are proposed 6 food truck events, May 31st, June 14th, June 28th, July 12th, July 26th, and August 2nd. For the hours of 11 to 3, which is Fridays, and it would be on the green or over by the green. We're going to waive the parking meter fees and the fees and see if we can develop some attraction for people. The city, to my knowledge, doesn't have much experience with food trucks, so we're kind of learning as we go here, start small, see if this really is a function and destination for people to come to the city of Hackensack that would, I mean, there are people that are very, very interested in food trucks and foodies, and they travel around and go to all these different festivals and stuff, and then track these ones that they have their favorites. So we're just trying to see if there's any real interest, and long-term, would it be a good fit for the city?
But these are Friday afternoons. I mean,
These are
people
fr-
work, right?
Well, they would obviously look for people that are gonna come from the county building,
And have
people
lunch.
from Sanzari's building over there, because we're right there on the, over on,
Washington Avenue.
that's it. Upcoming events, Moore Street will remain open during this time for its Washington Street.
Is there any cost the city would have to incur with each of these?
Well, there'd be a cost of some fees, but it's not.
No, like that we would have to
What about the
apply.
music?
Like they're supplying, Main Street Alliance is
We're
supplying the music.
essentially hosting and assisting them, but our
Not
real.
paying for anything.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Next is number 5. There is a concerted effort and interest of taking Summit Avenue and creating no parking from Central Ave south, currently from Thompson to south. As the city develops its commuters in the morning, because people park there, it narrows the ability for the flow of traffic. So there's some observation of changing the city ordinance to move forward, which would allow no parking for there and hopefully facilitate the egress of people either travel through the city or leave the city at this time.
Would that be wide enough that they'd get 2 lanes of traffic? On each side?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I've never spent that much time up there to.
Yeah, I mean, to
observe.
me, if we could have the traffic division look at that.
Yeah, okay.
Because if that would happen, I would think.
So you're
that
talking
would-
basically from, really would be Essex south.
But it's already south, Thompson South's already.
Yeah, it's already Thompson.
No, we're
There's no
looking at
parking
Central to
From
Thompson.
Central to Thompson?
Ave
Yeah.
south.
From Thompson all the way to Hasbrook Heights, there's no parking on Summit.
Currently, it's Thompson south.
Thompson all the way out of town, there's no
That's,
parking.
you have, that's an overlay zone. You have a lot of doctor's offices and stuff that depend on.
They have
unless you're gonna
parking in the
create
rear.
another lane. Yeah, but they don't have enough parking. Rear.
If these houses, they call doctor office, maybe the doctor don't even live there, and they're gonna allow to park in the street. Take you maybe half an hour from Central Avenue to go to Hasbrook Heights.
Yeah, but if you're not adding an additional lane, I don't understand what you're gaining.
Well, that's what we want to find out.
That's the part that needs to be investigated. Will it
I would
come up
measure,
with an
but I don't
extra
think you
lane?
could fit 2 cars. You'd have 4 lanes of traffic.
That's pretty wide, that street.
Okay.
Yeah.
My
I would say
last,
yes.
my last issue for the Cal meeting is Jim Mangan's here. If Jim could just give us an update on the introduction of the budget and the fund we have with the state. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, if you recall, we introduced the budget on March 26th, and the plan was to have the public hearing at the April 23rd meeting, and then after which we would adopt. We can't adopt our budget until we get state approval. The state, for a number of reasons, this year is very far behind. They're trying to computerize the process, and they've had a lot of glitches. When our public hearing came up on April 23rd, they still hadn't even looked at our budget yet. In fact, they hadn't reviewed our budget until last Friday, May 3rd. When they did that review, I worked with them on Friday, yesterday, and again today. What they're ordering is, we need to make one slight change. I overstated the Municipal Alliance budget, the grant, by about $1,800. That needs to be changed. Now, that one change is the budget amendment that's on the agenda for tonight. But that one change now requires another public hearing. So what's going to happen is we're going to amend the budget, or there'll be a resolution on the agenda tonight to amend the budget. And then at the May 21st meeting, we'll have a public hearing on the amendment, after which we'll be able to adopt. Okay? Now, since this process has been going on since March 26th, and since we had to have an amendment anyway, and since that amendment is going to have another public hearing anyway, what I did was I reviewed our salary budgets, and because I want to try and get the budget as accurate as possible. So in the amendment tonight, you'll also see, in addition to the municipal alliance grant, excuse me, a number of DPW salaries shifting. Okay, and that was done just to make the budget more accurate. Okay, the overall the budget's decreased by about $1,800. The tax levy stays exactly the same. It's a net decrease of roughly about I'm thinking 190,000, something like that. The idea of the tax decrease was to offset the new Hackensack municipal open space tax, so that everybody will end up with a net zero increase for the year. That hasn't changed. Okay, so again, on the agenda for tonight is a budget amendment, the budget adoption resolution, which was tabled at the April 23rd meeting, and tabled again, would be tabled again for tonight, and it'll be pulled from the table at the next meeting. Okay. The reason I'm explaining this is that all of this happened this afternoon around 3 o'clock. We weren't able to update the agenda on the website and things like that. Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Also, everybody has copies of the budget document at your desk. That same document will be up on the website tomorrow, which includes the amendment.
with the amendments. Thank you very much for your work. Appreciate it.
That would conclude the city manager's report for the Cal meeting.
Okay. Need a motion to open to the public, please.
Offer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unopposed? Anybody who'd like to speak, please come up to the podium. Give your name to the clerk. And you want, because we got some business in the back room, I'm gonna have to hold everybody to the 3 minutes, no grace
Yeah,
period.
Peter
Sorry.
Marcassani, Davis Avenue. I'm walking slower. Thanks to Ted, thanks to Joe and Glima. Gary Giussano and I met with
Got
Mr.
a good tan though, Pete.
Pardon?
You got a good tan.
I do have a good tan. I'm also sunburned in the back of my neck. Joe and Glima got all of the materials that Gary provided based on his drawing. Everything was delivered down to Johnson Park. We started working on Saturday. Leo, in spite of his old age, was a tremendous help. Dave walked by and had lunch. He helped also. We managed to get started on Saturday. Gary worked all day yesterday, and I joined him for half a day yesterday as well as working on Saturday. And today, again, thanks to Ted and the city, two individuals from the DPW were with us, Dave and Roy. Two wonderful individuals, I must say. They're very professional. And we ended up net, as of tomorrow morning, maybe, if the weather holds, we have basically 18 beds that are now built. That are 4 by 8 and 10 feet deep, all lined and ready to go. I mean, if you build it, they will come. I don't know. I'm not a gardener. I don't understand community gardens. Joe and Glima pushed the guys to say, you know, this is really a nice space here. Let's clean it up. And the stage is now down in Green Street. The portable stage, and they cleaned up a lot of the other stuff around the site just to get themselves organized. And I have to confess, you know, I know there's some politics involved in all of this stuff and a lot of money involved as well. But spending time down here, I said, gee, there really is a Johnson Park. You know, before that, I used to drive by and see kids playing soccer in the distance, and that was the extent of it. It's really a beautiful piece of land. And the more I look at the greenhouse and the structure of the building, I just can't conceive of anything like that being torn down. And I question even modifying it other than, you know, the abatement of the asbestos. I'm anxious to see what comes out of the reports, you know, from the city planner. But anyway, it's done for all intents and purposes. I think we'll be able to move forward. Some other stuff has to be done. Obviously, you know, a man gate should be put in. Opening and closing the gates as they are is debilitating, to say the least. But I'm happy to say that, you know, we accomplished a task. Gary will be here tonight himself, but he just couldn't make it. So I just wanted to give this brief update and say thanks to everybody who was involved in moving the project forward. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for your hard work.
Thanks to you guys.
Richard Salk in Hackensack, New Jersey. Mr. City Manager, I have to ask you a question because there's all kinds of rumors going around. Was a city computer seized by some government entity?
No.
Thank you. Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. The last meeting, which I watched on online, I think you made it clear regarding the pilots that you have no intention of ever sharing any of that money with the school district.
I won't.
No,
Well,
that's
that's
not true.
Go ahead.
We did not
I don't want
say
to use
that.
your time, Rick, but that's not true. Go ahead.
I think you should go back and look at what you said. It was pretty clear. It's gone from we're not there yet to they don't need it, 21,000, which is kind of a stretch in terms of what 100 State Street paid last year. But consider this. As I understand it, there's 6 children at 100 State Street who attend the schools. Tuition for the sending districts is $14,000 per. The document, the figure they now use for the state reporting is $16,000. Well, you're up about $100,000. So a $20,000 contribution would matter. I mean, to say, well, it's a $100 million budget and it's a drop in the bucket. Well, if I'm from Maywood and I'm saying, well, why make us pay? Because it's a drop in the bucket in terms of Hackensack School. It matters. Every little bit helps. And I would like to, I hope I'm wrong in what I saw. Because you often in the past, Mr. LaBrosse, cited Jersey City and the mayor and the many redevelopment projects, pilot programs, and they're committed to at least 10% goes to the school district. So I hope I'm wrong in what I saw, but maybe you should go back and see what you saw.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you're 100% correct. I did say at this time they shouldn't be getting any money at that time. And I also finished up by saying if there's a time where we feel we're severely impacting the schools in a negative way with children, we will pay for that.
Well, if you're putting in residential where there was no residential, I understand the Rutgers study.
Right.
It's adding children. Let's not kid ourselves. It's adding
But-
children.
But you
And
can
when we
add
get to
children,
25
you can add children without impacting, and that's why we have, let me finish, that's why we have our monthly meetings. Because when they get to a point where they say, hey, this is what happened, and now we're gonna need to add a classroom here because we're having an influx of a second grade in Jackson Avenue School, that's when we're going to step up and say, we're going to not let that impact you. But until they show us they have an impact, and that's what the discussions are, we talk about this every month. And when there is an impact, we will work together to make sure that there is not an impact financially as long as we can afford to do so. That's what we've been saying from day one. And when we get to the point where we're receiving even more money and grow to our fullest potential, we're hoping to do a lot of collaborative projects together. But Rich, you know, it was $266,000 last year. Now, hopefully this should be $450,000. So 10% of that was $26,000 last year. Let's be honest. And Jersey City is taking in $139 million. The 10% is only on new ones that they open up. None of the $139 million.
Well, this is
So,
all new, so.
Let's just put it, let's just get all the, if you're gonna talk about facts, let's let the facts be correct. And we always have been committed to not impacting the schools. And if there should be an impact, we will work together to solve it.
If it hits 20, that's a new classroom, that's a teacher, that's benefit.
If it's 20 in a same school, in the
Just
same
spread
grade,
out amongst
come
6
on,
schools.
Rich. All right, so so there's a
All right,
single-family
let's-
home that's paying $5,000 or $8,000 in taxes, and they have 5 kids. You gonna go to them and say, hey, you better pony up? No, you know that's not the way it works. That's not the way it works, Rick. So there's pluses and minuses throughout the city, and there's commercial properties, and there's ways that this balance out. So it's not the fact. You can't spew numbers and data the way that you'd like them to. That's the truth.
Well, you also, no, never mind. Maybe I'll do it.
Thank you. Next, please.
I would just like to point out that you answered his question, but last meeting you weren't allowed to answer my question. But anyway, back. Regina DePasqua. Also, I'll point out, the planes have become nothing compared to the helicopters. The hospital helicopters.
Okay.
They are so much lower, so much louder, They shake the foundation of my house. They fly directly over my house sometimes when they're leaving the hospital. Coming in, they come in over probably like Parkway. It's Parkway on that side.
Helicopters are noisy, very noisy.
Yeah,
Agreed.
still the noise and the vibration. And on Sunday, I don't know if there was disasters all over the place, but there were, it's at least 6 times in the afternoon that helicopter coming or leaving. So-
Going specifically to the hospital, because we have
Yes,
had,
it's the
we've
hospital.
also had increased helicopter traffic to Teterboro.
Oh, I can see them coming from the hospital. They come over the
Okay.
houses across the street. I could see the pilot, okay, sitting in front of my house.
Take some pictures for me, please, thank you.
I'm sorry?
Send the pictures in, because that really helps.
Well, I don't always have my,
If you have your phone,
Yeah.
we'd appreciate it.
yes. Number 2, as far as Summit Avenue, from Thompson South, there is no parking. There's no parking from
That's
Essex
what I thought I
South.
had heard, but
Yeah.
it's from Central.
South.
Central, and it's not wide enough because it's wider at Essex and Thompson, and it narrows from there till Central. They're the beach. It's
But
narrow.
Essex and Thompson, isn't it going into 3 lanes, because there's a right lane and there's the 2 middle?
It's wider.
But we don't want 6 lanes, we just want 4 if we could get them.
The curbs are wider. There's not, it narrows. The road actually narrows from Essex Street to Beach. It actually narrows. And people need that parking. I don't know why it's volume of traffic and putting them in 2 lanes instead of 1 and then you get up to the light and it's left, right, or straight, then 2 lanes are coming into 1. You know, I don't know how you're gonna make that work. Because not everybody in the right lane is going right. They might be going straight. Or they might be going left and have to cross over. I don't see how you think that's going to work. But anyway, I avoid Summit Avenue. Prospect is much better. The other thing, okay, most of us have been saying that the hospital has been getting preferential treatment. I just want to read, I'm sure you guys are aware of this, I hope I'm not the first to tell you that a judge said the city council violated basic principles of equal protection by hand selecting the city's second largest tax-paying property and its owner, HUMC, for a favorable tax treatment. Yeah, the hospital's been getting preferential treatment, while the residents are getting their open space tax, thank you, the accelerated tax sales, thank you, rolling assessments, which increase our assessed value, which increase our taxes. A judge has said, you've given preferential treatment to the mayor's employer.
Thank you.
Want me to comment?
I mean, do you want me to respond to this? I mean, look, we're aware of the decision and we're reviewing our options. The action was taken in good faith based upon the legal guidance of the former city attorney. The agreement was never implemented, so there was no actual impact on the city, the county, or the schools, and we're going to wait and see what HUMC does and figure out our next steps.
I mean, I think there's 2 very important points here that need to be made. One is that exactly what you said, and that agreement was never executed, so there has been no financial impact to any of the residents. And number 2, I believe, and again, I'm not an attorney, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not saying that they're required to continue to pay the 4.3 million, whatever it was in 2016 when this happened. They're just saying that instead of letting the city negotiate, let the tax court negotiate. So this will now go to tax court, should they choose to appeal it, which they've done before. And, again, it's what's it going to be? It's going to become somewhere between 0, because they've gone for full tax. They have, yes.
They dropped it.
Because of the settlement, Regina.
So there
We
is no
negotiated, they can file an appeal anytime they like. So they can now file an appeal, and that 4.3 million is going to be somewhere between 0 and 4.3 million. We have no idea what it's going to be.
But the
It's going to
bottom line
be,
is the city had no right to do what they did.
this city acted on behalf of the city attorney at that time, which was Judge Carver, said that this was this was his proposal, not the city's, of a legal way to avoid legal expenses on both sides and to come up with an agreement based on the change in use of that property that he determined was advantageous. He and the current city manager, who is not this city manager, was advantageous to the city. What's going to happen now is if they choose to appeal, as they've done in the past, a judge will decide something similar, and it will be somewhere between 0 and the 4.3 million. Will it be 3.4 million? I hope it will be at least that, otherwise we will lose on this. But we don't know that, Regina. It's a roll of the dice.
Do it right.
Next, please.
Kathleen Salvo again. I was very upset to see 5 trees on Lodi Street behind the M&M building. First of all, they'll probably just last a couple of weeks with the bus drivers and the truck drivers going north, going east to west, whatever it runs. Lodi Street, as everybody knows, is very, very narrow. There's parking on one side. And the parking where there is any parking, we're not allowed to park, it's a traveling lane. The wheels of the trucks and of the cars basically touch the curb. So if that happens, if it's a box truck, it's going to just destroy the 5 trees. And I think we should plant them elsewhere before they get destroyed. And also, when they start growing, their trunk is going to expand, and if people are going to cross between, because there's a lot of pedestrian crossing there, they're going to get whacked. So it's very, very dangerous. I usually park my car in the driveway, because if I park it in the front, the mirror gets whacked because it's so narrow. And people don't realize it's that narrow. They keep coming through and they play like chicken, and they can hit a car. So I know that they need greenery, because when they did that M&M building, it's 100% land coverage, but trees behind there, that wasn't a good idea. We did them once in front of St. Francis, and then we realized that they had to come down because we couldn't get the people out of church, couldn't get the bride out of the church, or the coffin around the tree. But it is it's indefinite line with the traffic. And we did that when we did Hudson Street. The upper part of Hudson Street by Z's office, we put the street lights back further. Because if they stuck out, they would get hit with the box trucks. Because the box trucks, the part of the box truck exceeds the wheels. So if the wheels are here, the top of the truck is there, and it was whacking all the lights. And they're going to whack all the trees. So rather than have them destroyed or have it in danger, I think we should remove them and plant them where they can be better application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to speak? Seeing none, motion to close to the public.
Offer.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? Need a motion to go into closed session?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed?
Whereas the mayor and council of the city of Hackensack deem it necessary to discuss certain actions under section 7B7 and 7D of the Open Public Meetings Act, which pertains to matters falling within attorney-client privilege, ongoing litigation, and personnel matters concerning the employment of a current or prospective public employee. Whereas the mayor and council of the city of Hackensack is in the opinion that such circumstances may presently exist, and whereas the mayor and council wish to discuss the following issues: personnel matters, ongoing litigation, matters involving attorney-client privilege, matters involving the purchase, lease, or acquisition of real property, any pending or anticipated litigation or contract negotiations. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and city council of the city of Hackensack deem it necessary to exclude the public from this discussion. The outcome of the discussion will be disclosed within 90 days or at such time as the interests of the city do not require confidentiality.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll just note for the record, there are a number of cases that are likely to be discussed. One is the Summit Church case. The second is the Rioto case. The third is a workers' compensation case involving a claimant named Ronald Jackson. And the fourth is the Nunnermacher case that was referred to earlier, in which case the mayor will be excused from any part of that discussion.
Okay. See everybody at 8 o'clock. Thank you.
Need a
Need
motion?
a motion to come out of closed session? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed? Need a motion?
Keith has
Yeah,
it.
and just adding to the record, we did also mention the Candela and Terra Nova lawsuit as well, in addition to the ones we spoke about earlier.
Okay, thank you. Motion to close the whole session. Motion to close the Cal session, thanks. Need a motion?
Offer. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed?